Tommy Nolan, pushing 60, felt the O'Hare control tower in his bones. Not in a good way either. It was a dull ache, a wariness that settled deep like the Chicago winter. He'd been riding herd on these metal birds for 30-odd years, seen enough near misses to fill a graveyard, and the only thing that kept him going was the paycheck and the stubborn refusal to end up like his old man. His dad, God rest his soul, had been a nut, a believer. UFOs, Bigfoot, the whole damn enchilada. Died chasing shadows in the West Virginia a tinfoil hat practically glued to his skull. Tommy had sworn he'd never go down that rabbit hole. Logic, reason, that was his shield against the darkness. But lately, the darkness was getting closer. It started with the fog. Thick as pea soup, rolling in off Lake Michigan like a living thing. It messed with the radar, turned the runway lights into ghostly halos, and made the pilots jittery. Tommy could handle the fog, though. He'd seen worse. What he couldn't handle was what came with it. Whispers, pilots reporting strange visual disturbances, ground crew seeing things out of the corner of their eyes. A flicker of movement, a shadow too big to be a bird, a feeling of being watched. Tommy tried to brush it off, blaming the fog, the stress, the goddamn Cubs' losing streak. But the whispers kept coming louder, more insistent. Then there was Earl, old Earl, the janitor, who'd been sweeping floors at O'Hare since before Tommy was born. Earl was a quiet man, a ghost in the machine, but he had eyes that saw things. Eyes that had seen too much. "Tommy," Earl said one night, his voice raspy as a rusty hinge. "You seen it, ain't ya?" "The Mothman," Tommy scoffed. "Mothman. That's just a story, Earl, a campfire tale." Earl shook his head, his eyes filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. "It's more than a story, Tommy. It's a warning. It comes before the bad things, before the hurt." Earl told him about the Chicago Mothman, a creature of shadow and dread that appeared before disasters. He told him about the Silver Bridge, Chernobyl, places where the Mothman had been seen before tragedy struck. Tommy wanted to dismiss it, to laugh it off, but Earl's eyes held him captive. They were the eyes of a man who knew things he wished he didn't. Tommy saw it himself a few nights later. Perched atop the highest control tower, silhouetted against the fog-choked sky. A towering figure, wings like tattered sails, and eyes that burned like crimson coals. The Mothman. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Tommy's skepticism. It was real. It was here. And it meant something terrible was coming. Tommy started digging, driven by a fear he couldn't explain. He pored over old blueprints, maintenance reports, anything he could find. He talked to engineers, mechanics, anyone who'd listen. And he found them. Cracks. Cracks in the foundation of the main terminal, ignored for years, patched over with cheap fixes and empty promises. Cracks in the electrical system, overloaded and outdated. Cracks in the chain of command, corruption and negligence eating away at the core. The Mothman wasn't just an omen, Tommy realized. It was a symptom, a sign of something rotten, something about to break. Then they came. Two men in black suits, faces like granite, eyes like ice. They knew about Tommy's investigation, about his conversations with Earl, about his growing obsession with the Mothman. They warned him to stop, to forget what he'd seen, to go back to his job and keep his mouth shut. They didn't threaten him directly, but the implication was clear. They knew where he lived. They knew about his daughter, his grandkids. They could make things disappear. Tommy was scared, but he was also angry. He wouldn't be silenced. He wouldn't let them bury the truth. Tommy knew what he had to do. He had to get the word out, to warn people about the danger. He went to his superiors, presented his evidence, begged them to listen. They dismissed him as a crank, a paranoid old fool. He was on his own. He went to the local news, but they wouldn't touch the story. Too crazy, too unbelievable. He was running out of time. He decided to take matters into his own hands. He went to the main terminal, armed with his knowledge and his fear. He started pulling fire alarms, shouting warnings, trying to get people to evacuate. Chaos erupted. People panicked, running for their lives. Security guards tried to stop him, but Tommy was driven by a force they couldn't understand. He had to save them. He had to stop the hurt. The terminal started to groan, the cracks in the foundation widening. The lights flickered, the ground trembled. Tommy knew it was about to go. He managed to get most of the people out, but there were still some stragglers, trapped in the shops and restaurants. He ran back in, risking his own life to save them. Just as he reached the last group, the terminal collapsed. Tommy woke up in a hospital bed, his body broken, his spirit battered. He was a hero, they said. He'd saved hundreds of lives, but he'd also lost everything. His job, his reputation, his sanity. The men in black were gone, but their shadows still lingered. The official story was that the collapse was due to unforeseen structural failures. The Mothman was never mentioned, but Tommy knew the truth. He'd seen it with his own eyes. He'd felt it in his bones. Tommy never went back to O'Hare. He couldn't. The memories were too strong, the fear too real. He moved to a small town on the outskirts of Chicago, a place where the fog didn't roll in so thick, where the shadows didn't seem so menacing. But he never forgot the Mothman. He spent his days watching the sky, scanning the horizon for the tattered wings and the crimson eyes. He knew it would be back. It always came back, and when it did, Tommy would be ready. He'd be waiting. Because he knew that the darkness was always out there, lurking just beyond the edge of the light. And sometimes, all it took was a pair of crimson eyes to remind you of that simple, terrifying truth.